Hey family, it's Jay Jones. I just wanted to share a quick message with you about my new workshop titled winningwebinarframework.com. Go to winningwebinarframework.com. So if you're struggling to generate leads, if you need to scale and you've hit a wall and you can't break through, or if you're struggling and about to go out of business, this workshop is for you. Make sure you go to winningwebinarframework.com. If you're interested in making more money, saving time, and generating leads on autopilot, this is the workshop for you. You're going to get the 3-step framework for webinar success and actionable techniques to captivate your audience and secrets to close more deals. In addition to that, I'm going to give you a bonus webinar success workbook and template. Make sure you go to winningwebinarframework.com for more information. And the investment is only $37. It's $147 value, but it is on promo right now for $37. Do yourself a favor, guys. Go to the website, watch the short 2-minute video, and then make up your mind if this makes sense for you. winningwebinarframework.com. Welcome to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the #1 podcast and resource for Black entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful, sustainable businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the worldwide Black community by building and supporting Black-owned businesses. If you're currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, you're invited to join us each and every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family and get ready to elevate your entrepreneur IQ. Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 556. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding and informative show in store for you. Today's show topic is $50,470 webinar case study in 30 days. $50,470 webinar case study in 30 days. One of the big misconceptions about webinars is that people think webinars are dead, but think again. And on today's show, I'm going to give you this case study, which is a personal case study from my mortgage business for me using webinars for a 30-day period. But before we get to today's show topic, let me just share a few things with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and resource links, such as the link to my latest workshop, winningwebinarframework.com, winningwebinarframework.com. Make sure you go to the website, check out the short video. That website and the video and the program coincides with today's episode. So go to winningwebinarframework.com. Also, make sure you utilize the website, guys. We spent a lot of money revamping and revitalizing the website. So go to blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com, hit the Learn tab. There'll be a drop down. We have all types of free resources to help you elevate your entrepreneur IQ. We have stuff on marketing, strategy and mindset, scaling your business, e-commerce. Everything is there designed to move you from point A to point B. So go to blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com. Also, for all you first-time listeners, we drop a new episode every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on all your major podcast platforms and YouTube. So wherever you're watching this or listening to this, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you could be alerted when the new episodes drop. Now, let's get ready for today's show content. So today we're going to dive into webinars, guys, and we're going to do a review of a case study, which is actually my webinar. So I'm actually doing a case study on myself about generating over $50,000 in 30 days with a webinar. The first thing I want to do is just to define what a webinar is. Now, everybody pretty much knows, but just in case, webinar is basically a virtual seminar that allows a large group of people to participate in a discussion or training event online. And webinars are interactive and can include audio, video, and presentations. So as opposed to back in the old days, like we used to go out and do live events all the time, which is, I actually love live events better, but you can now do more webinars and connect to more people in the comfort of your own home or in the office. So that's what a webinar is. Now, let's talk about why webinars are so effective. And I'm going to give you guys several reasons why webinars are so effective. And then we're going to talk about some misconceptions. And then I'm going to go more into my case study. But why are webinars so effective? Number one, the accessibility and convenience. So you can participate and join from anywhere with an internet connection. It could be on your cell phone, it could be on your laptop, it could be on your desktop. And it makes it easy to fit into a busy schedule. As I just mentioned, you don't have to go fly to Hawaii to go to a conference or a big seminar like we used to have to do back in the day. Now you can go in the comfort from anywhere. You can be a part of a webinar. You can host one or be a participant. Another reason that webinars are so effective, it's lead generation. And one of the things is by requiring a registration, webinars actually capture qualified leads who are genuinely interested in your topic. So lead generation, and I talk about lead generation ad nauseum because it is the number one thing that can fix your business. Generating qualified and consistent leads can fix a whole lot of mess. Okay. Excuse me. So you need to understand another benefit of why webinars are so effective is lead generation. You're capturing that data. Now, the key is you have to manage that data. Don't just grab the data, the name, email address, and phone number or whatever you're getting. It needs to be put on a database. And that database is where your money is. The money is in the data. So make sure you have a database software or email software. I use ConvertKit. There's ActiveCampaign. There's MailChimp. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. But lead generation. Number three, audience engagement. So you have interactive features in the webinar, like you can do polls, Q&A, live chat, and it keeps the attendees actively participating and engaged. So webinars allow you to engage with the audience. And when you engage with the audience, they get to know who you are. You know, they always talk about know, like, and trust. That's what people buy from you. If they know you, they like you, and they trust you. So the engagement is super important in terms of webinars and how effective they are. Another thing is being cost effective. They eliminate the travel costs and it allows for reaching a large audience with minimal overhead. Large audience with minimal overhead. Now, you can run webinars as many as you want. You can run 5 a day if you want. You can automate them if you want. And we'll talk about that a little later. Another benefit is content delivery, right? It enables you to share in-depth information and expertise on a specific topic or subject. Now, when you show that expertise, that puts you at a different level. If you come on a webinar and you have everything down, then you're going to make a positive impression on the audience. Now, if you come on there and you start babbling and you don't know what you're doing, you don't have the correct framework, then guess what? Your webinars aren't going to be as successful. And that's what we're talking about in the winningwebinarframework.com workshop. So make sure you guys check that out. Another benefit for webinars that makes them so effective is brand building. So it positions the host as a thought leader within their industry. So when you can control the crowd, right? Move the crowd with some great content, being interactive back and forth, you're building your brand. It could be your personal brand and or your business brand. It could be Jay Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. It could be Jay Jones, or it could just be Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Whatever you want to do, you're building your brand. Another benefit in why webinars are so effective is scalability. You can reach a large audience without geographical limitations worldwide. I've had people from Africa on my webinars, Australia, China, Japan. I've had people from all over the world attend my webinars over these past 10, 11 years that I've been doing the podcast. And it's just amazing. And also one of the things, guys, excuse me, based on your software, you can run automated webinars, recorded webinars. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And these recorded webinars are going to give you more depth and bandwidth than just running one webinar a night or whatever, which can be super exhausting. And another reason why webinars are so effective, guys, you can repurpose the content. So your recordings can be used for future marketing efforts like blog posts, social media content, and you can also turn webinars into an online course or workshop. And I've done that many a time. I create a beta group where I'd have on maybe only 10 to 20 people on a webinar. I would actually, do the webinar, get feedback, come back and do another one. And then I would use that webinar as actually a workshop. So you can actually repurpose the content. So that's another super benefit of why webinars are so effective. I want to talk real quick about the misconception about webinars right now. People are always talking about, webinars are played out. But the truth is that the frameworks of webinars have changed, not the webinar itself. Now, years ago, you'd be on these webinars for 90 minutes, and all it was a pitch fest. People are over there trying to sell whatever they're going to sell, and they're giving no real value. In today's world, a good framework is going to give your webinar attendees value, okay? And it's not going to be 90 minutes long. It's not going to have a whole bunch of fluff and nonsense. I can't stand it. I was actually on a webinar on Monday, excuse me, and the guy took damn near 20 minutes to even say anything that I was interested in. He was just BSing around, getting on there. Oh, where you from? Where you do? You don't do that. You focus on what the problem is, how you're going to solve it, and then you go and you teach something. But that's all within the framework of a winning webinar. So those are some of the misconceptions. So webinars aren't dead, guys. Remember it. Webinars all they are is online seminars. Okay, and the seminar business has been going on for centuries. So you just are delivering it in an easier, more palpable way where people don't have to leave their homes or their offices to be in front of you. And so once again, it's not the webinar, it's the framework that's changing. The old way doesn't work anymore. So if you're doing webinars right now and they're not working, you're probably using the wrong framework. Okay. People don't have patience anymore, right? Their attention span is short. So you have to know what the points are to hit them to be able to keep their attention and keep them engaged throughout the whole webinar process. So make sure you guys understand that webinars are not dead, right? So let's talk about the correct webinar framework. I'm not able to get into all of that right now because that's a workshop in and of itself. So make sure you go to winningwebinarframework.com. But I did want to share something with you. Webinars now, instead of going 90 minutes, are usually about 30 to 40 minutes. And they're broken up into 3 different components or 3 different sections. And if you have those sections out of place, and within those 3 sections, there are many sections within those 3 sections. And if you have them out of place, it's going to throw your whole webinar off. It's going to have people dropping off from the beginning. It's going to have people leaving at the middle, and you're going to have people leaving at the end. So when you do a lot of these webinars, there's going to be a pitch at the end, right? And there's a science to how you bring that up. You make it conversational. Have I shown you a solution to your problem? And if it makes sense, then here's an option for you. And one of the things about just me personally, I was never a hard salesperson. So even in the promo to today's episode, If it makes sense for you, then go to, winningwebinarframework.com. If it doesn't make sense, guess what? Don't even go there. But I know there are a lot of people out there, being a serial entrepreneur for 25 plus years and a business coach for over 20 years. I'm telling you, the number one problem is people don't know how to generate qualified, consistent leads in a way that's not going to kill their pocket. So you have to learn how to do that. And once you understand how to generate qualified and consistent leads, everything else is gravy after that. You can fix a whole lot of problems if you got a whole lot of money, right? Learn how to generate the sales and revenues, and then you'll be able to pare down the expenses. But that's a whole nother episode. But I may talk about that a little bit later on today's show. And bear with me, guys. I have a cold here, so I'm dealing with a little sore throat. So let's talk about the webinar flow. The webinar flow. How does it flow, and how does the webinar fit into the whole strategy? So the first thing that you guys have to have is traffic, right? So if you don't have any traffic, guess what? Nobody's going to be at your webinar, right? So I've talked about this on numerous occasions. There's 3 types of traffic sources, or 3 types of media. There's owned media, earned media, and paid media. Okay, let's start with paid media. Everybody knows what that is. Paid media is paying Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Google, whatever, to drive traffic to your webinar. That's paid media. The pros with paid media is that you can turn it on at any time. The cons is you have to make sure that you're not spending too much where you don't have any profit left after you spend for your ad cost. All right, so that's paid media. Once again, everybody knows what that is. The other thing you want to look at is earned media. Now, the thing with earned media is you can't control that. Earned media is when somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you be on my podcast? Or Black Enterprise wants to write a story about you, or you have a story in the newspaper or the local news station. That's earned media. You can't control it, and you don't know when and if it's coming. But if you do get it, that's gravy, because you hadn't spent a dime for it. Paid media you're paying for, earned media you're not paying for, but you can't control it. And then there is owned media, OWNED, owned. Owned media is the best type of media. Owned media is media that you can control. It doesn't cost you any money to communicate with your audience. Yes, it's going to cost you money to build that audience, but after you build the audience, it's all gravy. So for example, owned media can be a newsletter. Nobody can stop you from sending out your newsletter, right? Owned media can be a podcast. You're listening to a podcast right now. Nobody can stop me from sending out the podcast. Owned media can be, just emails, standard emails. So, everybody talks about social media, which is great, but the whole idea is to deplatform your audience from social media. Leverage social media, use social media, but deplatform them to your own owned media. And how do you do that? So if you have 10,000 social media followers, get them to get on your email list, okay? Get them to sign up for your newsletter. Get them to subscribe to your podcast, whatever. Owned media is media that you own and control, that nobody can take away. Blog post, right? Blogging, that you own that website, you own that blog. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these other platforms is rented land. You do not own them. And, they just had a scare right now with TikTok. They were going to shut it down, and now it's back up. But if you built your business solely on TikTok, I'm sure you were sweating like crazy, right? Because that was where your audience was. Now, because you didn't have any owned media, you were relying on somebody else's platform. And that is a death sentence. I'm telling you right now, it is a death sentence. It may be sweet right now. You may have 50,000 followers on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, and it's sweet now. But then they can go ahead and shut you down. YouTube, you don't control YouTube. It's so crazy because I had a YouTube channel that got shut down. I didn't even put up a video, but they said I broke the terms and conditions of the platform. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even put or post any videos yet. I literally, probably about 4 months ago, went through the process of disputing it. And literally today, this morning, before I recorded this episode, I got something back from YouTube, and it says, "Oh, congratulations! After we reviewed your site, we reinstated it." I'm like, yeah, there was nothing on there. There was no videos uploaded, and you shut it down. Literally over 4 months, I hadn't heard anything, and I figured, I'm never going to get this YouTube channel off the ground. But you don't own that. You can have videos, but you can put videos also on your website. You can host them with Vimeo. You can host them with other platforms. Now, of course, they're not going to get the traction, but still owned media. So you need to understand how important owned media is. Okay. So we're talking about the actual webinar flow. You want traffic, which comes from paid media, owned media, or earned media to go to your webinar. That webinar is designed to create a call to action at the end, a specific call to action. And when I go through the case study, I'm going to break everything down on my mortgage or one of my mortgage funnels, because I have multiple mortgage funnels and multiple webinars based on who I'm speaking to. That's called micro messaging. That was in last week's episode. So you want traffic to flow to your webinar to create a call to action. And that call to action can be whatever makes sense for your business. So for me, if somebody watches my full mortgage webinar, the highest form of call to action based on the webinar and they get through it is to schedule a call with me, right? That's what I want them to do. And I'm going to go through the numbers shortly. But you have to understand how the webinar fits in. You course creators, right? A lot of guys, when I say guys, I mean guys and gals, have great content in their courses. And what happens is you work your butt off on these courses, and you're all happy because you got the course done. And then you're like, yo, all right, who do I sell it to? Because you haven't built up your database. You haven't moved people far enough along the process for them to know, like, and trust you. So if you're just selling a course off of a web page, people don't know who you are. It's going to be super hard. You have to get them into your system, indoctrinate them, let them see the value that you bring, and then you can sell courses. Okay. So if you're a course creator, guys, definitely start using webinars to sell your courses, especially if your courses are $500, $1,000 and up. You're not going to really be able to sell those type of courses unless you have a big name, a big following. But if you're looking at cold traffic, it's going to be a hard thing to do that. So in addition to the webinar being a part of your strategy, there's email follow-up campaigns and things that you have to do that are going to turn those prospects and convert them into customers. One of the things that I use a 20 email sequence. People are like, damn, you email people 20 times. Yeah, a lot of times people stop emailing a prospect after, 5 to 7 times. But I have this special 20 email campaign template where it's not just asking for buy this or buy that. I'm giving value on certain emails. I'm showing examples on other emails. And so it's a great template that I've created in terms of being able to generate more revenues after I get people in the pipeline. You don't think because they come in and they hear you on the webinar and you're doing your thing that they're automatically going to, take your call to action. It may take some more time for them to get comfortable with you, as they say, know you, like you, and eventually trust you to part with their money. So we talked about what webinars are, why webinars are so effective, the misconceptions about webinars, the correct webinar framework. I touched on that. And then I just talked about the flow, the webinar flow, how you have to have traffic to the webinar, to your call to action. let me just share right now with you guys the case study of one of my webinars that I have right now for my mortgage business. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own multiple businesses, always have. Just for me, it keeps me sharp and it keeps me excited. So I own a hot sauce company. I own multiple physical products brands. I do digital products, obviously the podcast and the whole BEB ecosystem, in addition to a couple other things that I do. But my mortgage business, I was initially in the mortgage business in the late 90s into the 2000s. And in 2008, after the crash, basically I got out of that, almost lost everything, and was blessed to be able to come back and rebuild a multi-million-dollar business to replace that multi-million-dollar business that I lost. And so I was just thinking, I said, man, I still kind of enjoy the business. And I said, let me get back in the game. So for the last I think it's about a little over a year, I've been back in. This time in my mortgage business, it's small boutique. You know, before I had 50 some employees. I was downtown Center City in Philly. I had, $10,000-$12,000 a month rent. Payroll each month was in the hundred thousands of dollars. We were rocking and rolling, big office and all that good stuff. I don't need that anymore. I literally don't want it anymore. I'm at a different stage in my life where I want to be able to do what I want to do with who I want to do it, when I want to do it, and not have to answer to anybody. No employees, no partners, none of that stuff. So this boutique mortgage business that I have now, I close a decent amount of loans each month. I have a virtual assistant. I have a contract processor. And that's what I do right now. Now, let me give you some numbers over the last 30 days in the mortgage business. Now, I focus on pretty much 3 verticals within the mortgage business. Number 1, I focus for first-time home buyers, real estate investors, and entrepreneurs. So I do separate webinars for each of those verticals. So I'm going to combine all of those numbers so you guys can actually see what's going on. Excuse me. So in the last 30 days, I've had 372 webinar registrations. So those are leads, 372 webinar registrations. Out of those 372 webinar registrations, 252 actually attended the webinar. And I believe that's at about 68%. Now, out of those 252 that attended the webinar, 183 watched the full webinar. So that's 73% out of the attendees watched the full webinar, and that's pretty good. Out of those people that watched the full webinar, 75 people scheduled a call. That's 41% out of the 183. Now, out of those completed calls, out of the 75 scheduled calls, 57 people completed the calls. So that's 77% of the people who scheduled it actually completed the call. After those completed calls, I got 21 loan applications, which is 38% of the people who completed the call. You can go look at the numbers on the website for the show notes. So go to blackentrepreneurblueprint.com and hit episode 556. It should be on the top, and you'll see these numbers. So out of the 75 people that scheduled the call, 57 completed the call, and I got 21 loan applications, which is 38%. And I closed 7 loans out of those 21 loan applications, which is 33%. So literally I had 372 leads turned into 7 closed loans. Now the total revenue on those loans were $2,884,000. I'm rounding, keeping it rounding the numbers. The commission on that was $50,470. All right. So from 372 leads generated, I got 7 closed loans. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to remember, in my business, you're only going to close 35 to 45% of your loan applications. This business is crazy. Loans fall out for all types of reasons. Now, if you're selling something else, your numbers will probably be a little higher in terms of your actual sales. So if you're doing consulting or you're selling an online course, you're probably going to sell a lot more than 7 closed loans. The difference, though, in the mortgage business is the ability to make chunks of money. So 7 loans and $50,000 in 30 days, that's a good 30 days, right? So that's the thing that webinars have done. And what you have to understand, I did an episode last week, I believe, and it talked about micro messaging. So the product is still a loan, right? I'm selling loans to first-time home buyers. I'm selling them to real estate investors, and I'm selling loans to entrepreneurs. But the conversations that I'm having with each of them are totally different. So a first-time home buyer is going to need a lot more information and hand-holding than a real estate investor who's been purchasing, houses or apartment buildings, whatever they buy for years. Different conversation. An entrepreneur is going to have a different conversation than somebody that works 9 to 5 W-2 for the last 20 years, because as an entrepreneur, your money may be up and down. It may be seasonal. So the way that you position or present the loan to the lenders when you're a mortgage broker, you have to know and understand what you're doing. So each of the verticals is totally different. So the messaging is different. So that's why I don't have one webinar that fits all. So this is something that you need to think about if you decide to go and create webinars. So if you go to the course or the actual workshop, winningwebinarframework.com, I talk about that also. And I'm going to actually expound on that in a second in our last segment. Let me just give you guys all my social media contact information and resource links real quick. Everything I'm about to say is on the website, blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com. So I mentioned at the top of the show, and just recently, if you're interested in generating more leads, making more money, saving time, putting your leads on autopilot, make sure you go to winningwebinarframework.com. The investment is only $37. Do yourself a favor, watch the 2-minute video on the page, and if it makes sense for you, I'd love to see you in the workshop. Also, anything long, guys, if you want to connect with me, anything long, hit me on my email, jjones@blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com, JAYJONES @blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com. Facebook, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Instagram, I have 2 IG accounts. The first one is jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. Second one is Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter or X, you can connect with me at jjones001, JAYJONES001. LinkedIn, connect with me there. Go to LinkedIn, type in J Jones Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Also, YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have additional content on YouTube that is not on the podcast. Yes, the podcast does come out on YouTube, but I have additional content on YouTube. So go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, hit that subscribe button. So wherever you're listening to this or watching this, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you'll be alerted when episodes come out. And that's every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on all your major podcast platforms and YouTube. Now, let's get back to the last segment of the podcast. So I just want to talk about micro messaging and the importance of being able to really make a connection with your audience. So as I mentioned earlier before that break, micro messaging is speaking to each vertical the way they understand or need to be spoken to turn your audience into or convert them into paying customers. So once again, a mortgage is a mortgage is a mortgage, but the conversation is different for a first-time home buyer, an entrepreneur, and a real estate investor. So you have to do the extra work that a lot of other people don't want to do, and you may need to create multiple webinars for each of your verticals. Same product, different conversation. And I use the example of a true example of when I used to sell insoles, right? So I would sell my my daughters played field hockey. My youngest daughter had bad feet. We had to spend all this money on these orthotic insoles. And then I found the same insoles that we spent $300 for on Alibaba for like $8, right? So the crazy thing was I was selling them to field hockey, to the field hockey vertical. I was selling them to runners or joggers. And I was also selling them to people that stand on their feet all day, waiters and waitresses. And so the conversation with each of those verticals was totally different. Same product, same insoles, but it's a different conversation. So do the extra that other people won't do to be successful. And that's what it's all about. So with webinars, guys, the beauty of it is you have the ability to spend more time with your audience for them to get to know, like, and trust you, to interact with them, be it Q&A afterwards, live chat, whatever it is, but it gives you the floor. It gives you the platform to really build bonds. It's funny. I've done webinars over these 10, 11 years at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. And I've become good friends with a lot of people that attended my webinars and have been in my programs, some of my, online courses and masterminds. And I've become good friends with them, and it's a blessing, man. So you're able to connect with people on a different level. And that's what's going to make the difference when you're trying to convert. Your conversions are going to change, especially if you're selling a high price product or service to a cold market. So if you've listened to my podcast for over a long period of time, you probably kind of know who I am, right? You don't know me, but you know me. Right. So when I talk to people off of the mic, they're like, damn, man, you're the same dude. I'm like, yeah, because this is me. So what you hear pretty much is what you get. I'm actually a little tempered when I'm on the podcast. So in real life, I'm a little more edgier. Right. My language may be a little salty here and there. And I enjoy, I'm a big jokester. I enjoy having fun. So I got to temper that when I get on the microphone. I don't, if I'm doing comedy, that's one thing, but we're talking business, strictly business, trying to elevate your entrepreneur IQ. So I have to understand who I'm talking to, and what do they say? There's a time and a place for everything, right? So that's what you guys need to understand. When you're able to build that connection, 556 episodes over damn near, I think 11 years or whatever. And if you listen to me for any period of time, obviously you must like it if you've been tuning in for a while. That means that, I've made an impression. I've built a rapport. And that is so important when you're selling high-end products or services, especially to a cold market. So, people like one of my boys is like, man, how do you sell this stuff? And I said, well, number one, I have owned media. I've created a platform where, I'm sharing my experiences, good and bad, as an entrepreneur, pros, cons, the things that I've done that worked, the things that hadn't worked, almost going out of business, or not almost going out of business multiple times, almost losing it all twice, but being blessed to be able to come back and rebuild 2 multi-million-dollar businesses after I've almost lost it twice. So sharing that and being open and honest about what's going on, that builds rapport. You can't do that overnight. So when you start doing webinars, that's something that allows you to get a more deeper or a little deeper connection, especially when you're talking about, products or services that you're selling at a high level. And so one of the things I talk about in winningwebinarframework.com, make sure you guys check it out, is how to be effective, how to set up the flow, the framework that's going to make you successful in the webinars. I told you guys, webinars aren't dead. It's just the way that they're delivered is different. And so if you're interested, once again, in making more money, saving time, and generating leads on autopilot, then, this is definitely something you want to check out. It's funny because I have a lot of friends in the mortgage business, and they're like, damn, man, you doing how many applications you take this month? I'm like, yeah, man. I did 21 applications, and some are still pending. You know, in this business, in the mortgage business, you're not going to get a loan on Monday and have it closed on Friday. So you usually have, depending upon, what type of loan it is, it may be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or something like that for it to go from, application to close, depending upon all types of different factors. So a lot of stuff that I'm closing is coming from, even though it closed in the last 30 days, it may have been in the pipeline 60 days ago. So everything that I'm going to close in the next 30 days didn't necessarily all come from the actual previous 30 days. So what you have to understand is you're building up a pipeline. And when you're able to build up a pipeline and you're being able to sift out qualified from unqualified, man, that just makes a whole heck of a lot of difference. And also, webinars work on autopilot. One of the things that you want to look at too is called just-in-time webinars. So the old way webinars work where, oh yeah, I'm doing a webinar Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. So it could be Sunday. So now you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're bugging the bejesus out of people to hope that they remember to come to the webinar. Now, I use a software called Easy Webinar, EASY, easywebinar.com. There's all kind of different softwares out there. But Easy Webinar and a lot of the software, webinar software companies, they have what's called just-in-time webinars. So if you come in, like say at 5:05 p.m., the next webinar will be every quarter of an hour, so 5:15. Then you'll have one at 5:30, 5:45, 6 o'clock. So this enables you to catch people, even though it's a webinar, this enables you to catch people when they have the highest interest. So when I have to wait 4 days to 8 o'clock on Wednesday, I'm going to be like, man, I'm moving to the next. So the webinars can be recorded because you're not going to do a webinar every 15 minutes. You can do several live and record a live webinar and use that as a just-in-time webinar. And the beauty of Easy Webinar, some of these other platforms is if you come in late, guess what? You're not going to be able to stop the webinar, go backwards or go forwards. So it has the same feel of a live webinar. Also with Easy Webinar, I can run recorded webinars. People can go into the chat and the chat will go to my cell phone and I can respond to the chat right on my phone. I don't even have to be looking at the webinar. I could be sitting down watching TV, and if somebody chats in there, I can respond to that chat. Okay. And sometimes the questions in the chat are going to be the difference between, or answering the questions are going to be the difference between making a conversion into a sale or not. So these are some of the things and the benefits that webinars have. So Easy Webinars, who I use. There's Webinar Jam. There's tons of them out there. A lot of the platforms, like I use System.io, they have a webinar thing. I'm not really into their webinar platform because Easy Webinar really has some great tracking information. So for example, they tell you when people drop off your webinar. So if you see a consistent drop off level at a certain point in your webinar, there's a problem. Well, I need to change this part. People are dropping off here. I have to revamp this. So the analytics from Easy Webinar to me are one of the best out there. So it's a nice platform. Check it on out, easywebinar.com. So that's it for today's show, guys. I just want to say that I wanted to make a point. 2024 and 2025, I want to do super impactful shows, things that are going to be move the needle from point A to point B. Elevate your entrepreneur IQ, give you actionable steps to move you from here to here. And that's what all the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint is about. Even the whole ecosystem, the podcast, the online courses, workshops, the books, everything is designed to move you with actionable steps from point A to B. I say this each and every week, guys, because it's true. We get more and more downloads because of you, the BEB family. I appreciate you guys so much. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast, the blog, the website, blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, the online courses, the workshops, the books, the whole BEB ecosystem. Remember, it's designed to elevate your entrepreneur IQ. Remember, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about building an economic power base in the worldwide Black community by building and supporting Black-owned businesses. Love you guys. See you same time next week. Peace.